Okay, I'm one of those people who has a whole stack of books next to her bed and shames herself about all that she's not reading. Yes, that's me. I think I'm like many people out there. I love books and I love to look at the titles, but it does make me feel bad. I feel badly that I'm not reading. I have self-disparaging thoughts. And one of the things I've done more recently is I've removed them from my nightstand. And I just leave the one book that feels important to me to read. One of the other things I've done is I've started doing what my friend Eric does, which is to listen to more interviews. So instead of always feeling like I need to buy and read the book, I first listen to an interview or two and decide whether it's something that I really do want to invest my time in. So recently, when I'm listening to long form podcasts, I'm focused more on listening to interviews with the authors of books that I'm interested in, or the authors of books that I never read that are kind of old now, but I've always been intrigued by. One of them is a book by Jen Sincero or Jen Sincero. I'm not sure how she pronounces her name. The Italian pronunciation would be Sincero, called You Are a Badass. I don't know, that book title never resonated with me, but it is everywhere and it has been on the bestseller list for years and years. Anyway, she did an interview with my good buddy Susie Moore on her podcast, Let It Be Easy. I know I reference Susie a lot because she is like the godmother of my podcast and one of my wisdom buddies. And we trade messages about books and interviews and life hacks. Anyway, so she was on Susie Moore's podcast and I decided to listen in because I had never read any of her books. And it was a fabulous interview. There were two things that she talked about that I wanted to mention. One was she talked about retreating. When I say retreating, it's something that a lot of us did during COVID. And again, this is not a commentary on COVID and all of that, but one of the great things about COVID and that whole period was that a lot of us got more comfortable with being alone. And some of us took that too far and got isolated. I was really isolated. I had come off of a long-term relationship, then COVID happened, then I was with him again, and we were retreating out in Montauk on the east end of Long Island. And when I came back into New York City and back into my quote unquote real life, I was spending a tremendous amount of time at home alone. And Jen Sincero talks about this a lot in this interview. What I found interesting is we lose our confidence and it's so easy to forget the stimulation and insights and joy and love we get from being around people. Speaking for myself, I'm not a hugely social person, but I love that intimate connection. And I've been making much more of an effort to put myself out there. And I've gained confidence and I've sort of found my voice and I've come back into myself. And I just loved how she spoke to that. She's a very public personality, hugely successful. And she was talking about how she had retreated and taken that retreat and that quiet too far. I do think that some people are still stuck in that mode. I don't want to say stuck. I shouldn't say stuck. They're still sort of in that mode. The other thing that she talked about were these questions that she asks herself as she re-engages more actively in the world. They were so good, I had to go back and listen to the interview again to find them. Here are her three questions. Will it be fun? Will it give me energy or deplete my energy? And does it have meaning? Now, of course, these questions were in the context of her life as a public figure. It's interesting because one of the questions she used to ask herself and one of the filters through which she evaluated how she spent her time was, will I make money? Now that is no longer her key driver. These are her questions. So I guess this kind of brings it back to the filter question. I stated this as filters. What are your filters? And she asks herself these questions, but we're both saying the same thing. It really does come down to clarity and realizing that you have a choice to make. Do you want to stay isolated and in your own little insular world, or do you want to re-engage? So as I've said before, speaking for myself, my filters are, am I going to be putting myself in the way of interesting people? And am I going to be around people that are focused on the same things that I am, which right now are my writing and creating this show for you? That's what's important to me now, and those are my filters and the questions I'm asking myself. Sorry if I'm belaboring a point, but it's what's on my mind right now. That's all for now, from my heart to yours.